Greetings, everyone. Hi, I'm Rashid. I'm the host of the Red Pill Diaries. I'd like to first, before we go live, thank each and every one of you for giving us another hour of your time and another day out of your busy lives. Thank you so much. It's very much appreciated. I also would like to ask you to subscribe, to like, and share the video. Before we go live, which will be going in just a few seconds, to my left or my right over here, which is your left, check out all of our social media platforms. Please remember to subscribe to those and go show your support. We hope to give you a powerful show. We thank you again for giving us the opportunity to come to you and give you unfiltered, unadulterated truth. Okay? Because we know in a time where lies prevail, truth is a rare, convenient, and truth is a rare commodity that we must use to get to the masses so that we can empower them with wealth, mental, spiritual, and emotional wealth as the world that we know dies out and as the governments that we know who rule the world try to enslave us mentally, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, and economically. On that note, thank you again. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And also on all of our social media platforms here, go and do the same thing. We really appreciate it. Now, on to the fire. We're about to go live. Thank you so much. Peace. Enjoy. I'm your host, Rashid, and I'd like to thank you for giving us another hour of your day and another day of your time. Now, let's get right into it. Today's show is called Breaking U.S. Hegemony and Building a New World, one BRICS at a time. Now, we had another show scheduled for today, but at the last minute, something came up with Matthew Eric. He contacted me early this morning. I would say late last night, but it was early this morning. Something had come up, and he asked, could I postpone it just for a little bit? And so I told him, cool, we can do that. So we postponed the show for a few days so that he can take care of some unexpected business that has come up for him, okay? So I didn't want to leave you guys high and dry, so I decided to just schedule in his place a short live stream, and we can just talk about some issues that are now at the front and center of global politics, global geopolitics, and culture. And what better subjects to address than the breaking of U.S. hegemony, which means the collapse of Western power, Western influence, and Western domination, while also explaining that it is happening one BRICS, BRICS, at a time. And so let's get into this subject and let's talk about a few things, because there are so many interconnecting points to this puzzle that most people don't understand. When we look at what just took place recently with the BRICS expansion, when BRICS just held a meeting a few days ago, and I believe it was last week, and they decided to expand, and now BRICS has become BRICS Plus, meaning that it now comprises well over 45% of the population of the planet Earth. It has between 40 and 50% of the global GDP, and it has over 40 to 50% of the commodities, hydrocarbons, and it accounts for a huge matter of fact. If we want to look at it, China is the economic engine of the BRICS. And if we look at the rules-based order, and we look at the two economic engines of the rules-based order, which is the United States and Germany, these are the two dominant economies of the Western world. Germany's economy is in total and utter decline. The United States economy is in total and utter decline. They continue to fund their economies through the printing of money without any tangible assets or goods to back the money, which means that they are exporting inflation, which will soon come back into their borders, which will ravage not only the government, not only the economy, but the people of the economies and nations. Okay? So, again, let us get something established that the United States is the economic engine of the rules-based order. And we've addressed what the rules-based order is, but we're going to address it again for those of you who may be new to the platform and those of you who may not understand or may need a refresher course on what this rules-based international order is, that the United States, that France, that Great Britain, and that the NATO or European nations continue to talk about and continue to trumpet, because they wanted to supersede the established, quote unquote, established international order, which, as long as the United States dominated and benefited from, that was the one to look out. But now that she is losing her position, her influence, and her wealth, it is no longer the international order. It is now the rules-based order, which is inherently racist to the core. Okay? But what else could you expect from the exceptional nation, right? And her minions. But we're going to address something. Let's pull this up real quick. Rules-based order and this thing, because this is something that you must understand, because this has a direct tie with France in Niger. This has a direct tie with France trying to recolonize or openly colonize its former colonies. I wouldn't even say former colonies. I would say it's down low colonies, because he who prints the money and he who controls the money controls everything. And France controls the economies of at least 12 African nations. I want you to understand what I'm saying here. So, and this is connected to the BRICS. This is connected to the collapse of American power, Western domination. Think about this as we talk about the international order and the rules-based order. France requires those those down low colonies to deposit 55% of their international or their national reserves, of their currency reserves, meaning that for every dollar that the nation gets, France requires them to deposit 55 cents of that dollar into France banks. Now, check this out. Not only does France require that, so France can hold that, France requires that, and France also prints the currencies of those nations. Now, how in the hell can you be totally economically and politically independent when somebody else prints your money and holds the majority of your foreign currency reserves, which allows you to trade with other nations independently, which allows you to fund national projects? Okay? Nobody addresses these things. This goes along with the wars that they continue to push across Africa and across the Middle East. All right? Man, I'm telling you something. Let's go into something. I want you to understand something here. I put in these words. I'm going to show you how to get it too. Rules-based international order. And when I put it in Google search engine, it says there's 2,470 million results in 0.51 seconds. Okay? And at the top of this, it says, in international relations, the liberal, keyword liberal, international order, LIO, also known as the rules-based international order, RBIO, or the rules-based order, RBO, describes a set of global, rule-based, structured relationships based on political liberalism, economic liberalism, and liberal internationalism. All right? Now, let's go something. So if you go down and wait, I think it's let's see. All right, I think this is it. Right? Is that it? All right. It says right here, when you go down and it says, people also ask, and then you click on the second one, what is the meaning of rules-based order? And it says, a rules-based order may generally be understood as listen to this part, as a shared commitment by states to conduct their activities in accordance with an existing set of rules. The rules-based order is underpinned by a system of global governance that has developed since the Second World War. What is significant about that? Huh? First of all, coming out of World War II, who was the predominant power? The United States. Who made the rules? The United States. And who dominated this order? The United States. Right? Is that not right? Now, the thing about this is that because America believes herself an exceptional nation, she makes the rules up as she goes. They don't apply to her, but they apply to everybody else. And if she tells you what a rule is supposed to be and you flaunt that rule, then you're in opposition to the rules-based international order, right? I mean, man, I'm telling you, these people are crazy as hell, okay? But let's go further. Let me go down a little bit. Because I see something in Google that I'm going to tell you about in a minute. Google looked like it scrubbed or removed the definition that I once told you on the show. So I'm looking at this. It's the rules-based international order. Let's see. Hold on one second. I want to see if they did it. I want to give them their credit if they haven't. I'll put in something else. Rules-based order, international order. Let me see if I can put this in and pull up the same thing that I once put it. Let's see. Rules-based international. They moved it. They moved the definition. After I did the show a few times and I told you about the definition of the rules-based order and how it's in opposition, I used their definition and showed you how the rules-based international order is in opposition to the international order or international law. It was in the very definition of this stuff. And I've done multiple shows reading the very definitions of this to you. All right. So let's go a little further. Let me see if I can pull it up somewhere else for you guys. Give me a second. Let's see. Difference. No, they removed that. They removed it. It used to be right at the top. Google is scrubbing definitions that are not in line with the Western theme of things. But what are we to expect? We know. So let's see if I can put it up another way, because I really want you to see this definition. Give me 1 second. Rules-based international order. Rules-based order. Let's see if we can pull it up another way. Yeah, they removed that. They removed the definition of it. And I've tried it 3 different ways. I believe 3 different ways. And it is gone. It's gone. Google scrub. So you may have to put in some other tricky words or whatever to pull up. Go back. I refer to some of my shows from last month and month before last, where I used the actual definition off of Google and told you exactly how to pull the definition up. And when we did that, we found out that the rules-based order is code word for American domination, for Western domination. And there's no order and there's no law in their rules-based order. I mean, it's in the very definition of it. So, but this has to do everything. It has everything to do with the breaking of U.S. hegemony. Listen to me good. The reason that the United States is after Iran, and by the way, I might add that they're building up massive. I've been telling you guys this for months, that people that are close to the situation have told me that the United States is, when everybody's looking at Ukraine, the United States is deploying heavy weapons, equipments, and troops to the Middle Eastern, North African region. I told you this before the coup in Gabon. I told you this before the coup in Niger. I told you that NATO was doubling down in North Africa, in the Middle East. And what do we see now? What do we see now? While everybody was preoccupied with Ukraine, I continue to tell you guys. And as they made feints at Asia, focusing on China, I kept telling you guys, this was a sleight of the hand trick by the magician. And now we are getting more reports coming in steadily that the United States is doubling down, redeploying troops to Yemen. The UK is doing the same thing to all across these regions of North Africa and to the Syrian area. And as a matter of fact, they bombed Syrian forces a few days ago, claiming that they thought that they were bombing ISIS. Now, I want you to think about this. See, America's a liar. The West, they lie so much. I call them rugs. They lie more than rugs lie. Okay? How in the world, first of all, you're an illegal entity in a foreign nation, telling the foreign nation that you are occupied, the area that you're occupying of their foreign nation, that the government, the military, and the people can't go in their own territory. That would be tantamount for me to going into your house and telling you, hey, forget everything that you're saying. I'm going to occupy your kitchen, your bathroom, and the master bedroom in the hallway. You and your family are relegated to the 2nd bedroom, the 3rd bedroom, and the 4th bedroom. If you come out of those bedrooms, we will bomb you. We will shoot you. Do you believe that any person in their right mind would allow that to happen in their own home? That's home invasion, right? Well, why does that not apply to America illegally occupying Syria? Why does that not apply to America illegally occupying Iraq, Yemen, Somalia, all around these areas? Nobody is making any bones about this. The United States always talked about sovereignty. Right now, they're screaming about territorial integrity of Ukraine while violating the very tenet and essence of territorial integrity and national sovereignty in Africa, all across the Middle East. They won't even pay any attention to U.S. mandates or UN mandates about returning islands to the people from those islands in the Pacific. Both the UK, France, and the U.S. are ignoring the UN about returning the original inhabitants of the islands that they occupy back to those occupied islands. The United States, Great Britain, and France have removed populations to make military bases out of people's homes. And that's not a violation of national sovereignty, international law, territorial integrity. Why? Because they're doing it. They make the rules, and whatever they say, they do, and that's what it's based off of. The rules-based order, right? But BRICS and BRICS Plus is now shattering this myth of American dominance and bringing to light Western intransigence, arrogance, hubris, and racism. Okay? They are screaming to the top of their lungs over Ukraine when they instigated the thing. Now, I want you to think about this, because sometimes we don't think about stuff like this. In my show, I like to provoke thought, right? Ukraine is I can be off by the miles, but some 7, 8, maybe 9,000 miles from America's shores. And America says it's in her interest to go in there and bribe the governments, overthrow the governments, put in place a Western-led government, right? Do you know the spokesperson of the Ukrainian military is a he/she from the United States? Huh? Now, that's in America's interest, but it's not in Russia's interest, which Ukrainians and Russians or Slavic kin is not in Russia's borders to remove NATO and U.S. bases out of Ukraine, which borders Russia. Russia can throw a coin across the border, and it's not in its national interest or its favor to do that. But America, 8,000, 9,000 miles away, it's in her interest and rights to do it. You make that make sense. The hypocrisy of the West, right? The hypocrisy of the West is on full display, and the world is watching. So now they look at Russia, they look at China, they look at the expansion of BRICS, they look at Iran as threats to this rules-based international order, and they see a weak link. They thought it was South Africa. And then they recognize, hell, Great Britain still has pawns in Indian governments. They didn't just, listen to me good, when the British left India and all of the former colonies, they didn't just pack up and leave. That's against their nature. When have you ever seen a colonial power just pack up and leave without anything? What they do when they pack up and leave is cause tensions between the ethnicities, right? The tribes and the cultures. And then they leave people who have been indoctrinated with their ideology there to foment division, strife, and make them ascend to power. It was no coincidence that the McMahon line between China and India was left like that, because look how long that's been since the British pulled out of India, and look at how China and India had to deal with that. Look at the difference in what's going on in Pakistan and India, Bhutan and India and Pakistan, or Bhutan and India and China, Bangladesh, India and China. Look at China and Chinese Taipei, which is Taiwan, and Japan and the United States. Look at North Korea and South Korea and their beef over disputed territories. Look at all of these regions where Western colonial powers were. It is no coincidence that everywhere they go, when they pull out, there's trouble. And then guess what happens? The Western powers who created the trouble claims to defend international law, and they use that to further their so-called national interests so that they can dominate the people, and then they come back as though they're the peacemakers and offer a plan for peace and stability. And if both sides who have been divided by the colonial powers accept the colonial powers' peace plan, then guess what? They are ruled once again by the colonial powers. Isn't that something? But the world is catching up to this trick, right? So listen to this. Marjorie Taylor Greene, a congresswoman, a firebrand congresswoman, says this. She let the cat out the bag, okay? I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to read it to you. Bear with me. This was reported September 1st. RT did an article on it. Sputnik News did, or Sputnik, I think they pronounce it Sputnik, but you know, we tear up languages, so we say Sputnik News, okay? But, and other people reported on it. But guess what? The major Western outlets ignored it. But this is Marjorie Taylor Green, and this is what an article came out, and the headline is this: Rise of BRICS, BRICS. BRICS, that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, plus these new nations that have been incorporated into the BRICS plus. Listen to what she says. The rise of BRICS is devastating for the U.S. That's what the Congresswoman says. I'm going to read this to you. Pay close attention to it. The group can bypass the dollar. Bing! You hear this? This is why it's devastating, because for so long, the United States has been able to export inflation, manipulate interest rates, which causes spikes in food, spike in fuel, spike in energy prices, which also foments crisis in other nations and causes division, and also lead to color revolutions and overthrow of governments around the world. That one thing, that dollar, gave the United States an unimaginable, unfair advantage over everybody else, and it allowed America to interfere in every nation that did trade with the dollar, which was almost every nation. It gave them the right to interfere in their foreign and their domestic policies. Isn't that something? Nobody. See, I hear a lot of people talk about they're adamant about a new world government and a one world currency. Hell, the United States dollar has been the one world currency for the longest. Nobody even screamed about that. That was the one world currency. It was the reserve currency of the world. What does that mean? It's only one reserve currency of the world. That means that it was accepted not only in the United States, but in every nation around the globe. And in most nations, at the time when America was at its strongest, the dollar was accepted over their own national currencies. So that's a one world currency that nobody looks at. I told you, thought-provoking here. So listen to what she says. The group can bypass the dollar, chipping away at Washington's economic dominance. Stop right there. I thought Trump wanted a fair playing field. I thought Obama wanted a fair playing field. I thought Biden wanted a fair playing field. America can compete with anybody on a fair playing field. We don't want Huawei here. We don't want TikTok here. We don't want this, and this here. We want a fair playing field. But Miss Marjorie Taylor Greene let the cat out the bag. America can't compete on a fair playing field. Thus, she needs an advantage. And that advantage is the maintaining of U.S. dollar supremacy. Again, let's read that. The group can bypass the dollar, chipping away at Washington's economic dominance, Marjorie Taylor Greene has said. As BRICS gain momentum, the U.S. economy becomes weaker because the members of the grouping can circumvent American sanctions and trade in their own currencies. Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene said on Thursday. Now stop right there. Would that be so damning for the rise of BRICS if America was producing something that was tangible that the world wanted? Huh? If I had a product that the world needed and I was able to produce that on a major scale and ship that out on a major scale, would it matter to me that my currency was no longer without a rival? Would it matter that my currency was now equal to 2 other currencies or 3 other currencies? No, because I would still be making my way because I was productive. The only time when this really matters is when you're no longer productive. America is no longer productive. What does she produce except war, division, dollars, and movies? And check this out. People are being wise to the wars. They're getting wise to the division that America causes. They're rejecting her movies because guess what happens with the movies? She just continues. All she does is remake. There's no creativity in her anymore. The creative mind has been taken from her. And this has become a threat. So what does America need? They need some type of an advantage. And the advantage is the dollar. Hence, you see America trying to destabilize and recolonize nations around the globe. Right? Stop me if I'm not making sense to you. Okay? Let's go further. Speaking to her constituents in Georgia, the Republican Congresswoman lashed out at the administration of the U.S. President Joe Biden, which she said is turning a blind eye to the rise of BRICS, an economic group which consists of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and accounts for more than a quarter of global. It's more than a quarter. They listen to me good. Every time they publish this stuff, they'll say a quarter. Then they'll say 30%. Then they'll go do a Google search. Then they'll say the BRICS account for 40%. Then they'll say almost 50%. Okay, if it accounted for 40 or almost 50%, when it was just Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, it just expanded to 11 nations. So shouldn't that mean that it accounts for more than 50% now? I mean, common sense tells you this, but common sense is not so common in today's world because they continue to dumb you down with this foolishness. All right, let's go further. It says, the Republican firebrand claimed that while Washington is doing nonsense, which I concur, including providing all kinds of support to Ukraine, which is locked in a conflict with Russia, there are other countries in the world, powerful countries, she says, organizing together because they are tired of the United States. All right? Because they are tired. Now, let's go to the dictionary real quick, okay? All right? Bear with me. The definition of tired, according to Google, is an adjective. And it means in need of sleep or rest, weary, worn out, exhausted, fatigued, tired out, overtired, weary, sleepy, fed up with, bothered with or by, sick of, sick and tired of. So what she's saying is that the people of the world are fed up, they're tired. They're sick of America's intervention, America being involved in every aspect of their daily lives, trying to micromanage every nation on the earth and mold them into the image and likeness of America. Right? Democracy must triumph. Why? People never ask these questions. Why must every nation be a democracy? Why? Because you said so? What about the people who have to live under certain governments, who have different cultures, different things that they hold close to them, different views and aspects of life and what freedom is to them? Why must they have something like you? Because America believes that she is the God. What did God do? He made man in his image and what? And his likeness, right? And what is America trying to do with the nations around the globe? She's trying to force them, fashion them, and make them into her image and into her likeness. And if you don't fall in line, you become an enemy to the empire. Is that not right? So let's go back to Miss Marjorie Taylor Greene. She says, in this sense, the BRICS countries are making serious trade agreements where they are saying, we'll buy from you, you'll buy from us. We don't care about U.S. sanctions, and we'll sell to one another, buy and sell in our own currency, not the U.S. dollar, she stated. This is one of the most devastating things that can happen to all of us. Stop right there. Do you remember a few months ago, the White House spokeswoman, I forget her name, black girl, said that this was an infringement of the rights of U.S. citizens if a nation were to use their own currencies and not use the dollar. This was a violation of American citizens' rights. The arrogance, I'm telling you. So if this is my nation, I print up the currency, and I am responsible for the livelihoods, the security, and the well-being of my people, my population. Why do we have to use your currency? If we use your currency, you have a say-so over our laws, over our policies, and over our daily lives. So why is that so devastating for a nation to exert sovereignty over their political, economic, cultural, and national affairs? Why is that so devastating to the empire? Listen, going back up on something she said, I want to go back up a little bit because something came up and it didn't get by me. I wanted to say it. She says, there are other countries in the world, powerful countries, organizing together. That means what she's saying is that they are working on the outside of Western domination, Western policies, Western dictates, Western finance. And this is a no-go. Why? Because America has no say, no influence, nor any involvement in this. And believe, when you have this complex of where you are exceptional and that you are supposed to dominate every aspect of man and human life, then it becomes a problem because you can't hear, see, or feel what's going on over there. It's like your nosy neighbor. Have you ever had one of the nosy neighbors in the neighborhood? And every time something goes on, they're trying to figure out something. They're trying to find out what's going on in the house over there. And while they're trying to find out what's going on in the house over here, and the house over there, and the house over there, hell breaks loose in their own house. And they try to keep that under wraps while they're trying to tell everybody else what to do in their houses. This is America. This is America. This is what she is good at, trying to dictate to others whether she's right or wrong. And this is in connection with Gabon. This is in connection with Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, and the other nations who are breaking free of their Western colonial hold. Okay? Now let's go a little further. She says, man, this is something else right here. This is what she says. As BRICS become more powerful, the US dollar gets weaker, she said. And you know what happens to all of us? We're going to go broke. Stop right there. Well, if you were producing something and you were productive outside of war and manipulation, you would have tangible assets in a time of uncertainty. But because you know that America exists on the gratuity, the American dollar exists as the international reserve currency on the gratuity of the nations around the world, you find yourself now in a precarious situation that even though you tell the world that America is the richest country in the world, the reality says otherwise. And now you're seeing the wealth, the influence, the power, and the domination all dissipate from the hand of empire. Okay? It goes further. Listen to what she says. The Congresswoman predicted, adding that this dynamic will negatively affect the retirement plans and personal savings of ordinary Americans. Why? Because this is a Ponzi scheme. The American economy is a Ponzi scheme. It is a service economy that is built on illusion. No tangible assets. The dollar has no viable backing. How does America keep the US dollar as the international reserve currency? Through the threat of war, through destabilization, through overthrow of governments, through the imposition of irrational, illogical, and racist, fascist laws on other nations. You don't think America is going insane? What do you call this? When a nation has become so enraged that they're doing things claiming publicly that is in the national interest of the United States. But in reality, even Stevie Wonder sees that it is a hindrance and to the detriment of U.S. citizens. How in the hell can you say sanctioning Russia, the largest exporter of wheat products, fertilizer, which grow the products, one of the largest exporter of oil, diamonds, gold, silver, palladium, and all of these other precious minerals, and gas and oil. How can you rationalize sanctioning that, stealing $650 billion in front of the entire world, and say that Russia is the aggressor? Now, let's be reasonable. Flip the script. And what if Russia did that to the United States? What would America say? That would be a what? A declaration of what? War. Right? That's what I'm telling you. That mine. I can and no one else can. That is Belshazzar. Nebuchadnezzar and Belshazzar in the fall of Babylon, the Babylonian Empire. Look at what my hands have wrought. I am and there is none other. Right? Am I not telling you the truth? So let's go a little further. Now, and I want to explain this, and we might do a part 2 of this, all right? Because I'm not going to stay on the air for no 2-3 hours, okay? Not today. I have a few things I have to do. Also, we got some surprises dropping for the channel members. So if you haven't become a channel member, please become a channel member. That supports the channel. It keeps the work going. Also, hit the like button and subscribe. On top of all of that, become a patron. Go over to patreon.com/the Red Pill Diaries, all one word. Also, go to all of our other platforms and join. Thank you so much, because I already know that you're going to do it, okay? Because you love truth, all right? And we're the best vehicle for truth. And as I often say, remember this, that this little channel here is your favorite channel's favorite channel, okay? We are your favorite channels, the channels that have 100,000, 200,000 subscribers. We're their favorite channel. They get ideas from us. I do a show. I do a channel video a day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days later. They're talking about the same issues and using some of the same points. Okay, so I know that this little channel is your favorite channel's favorite channel. Okay, let's go further. It says, what is going to happen to our children? She's asking this question. What is going to happen to our children when the US dollar means nothing anymore? Because Russia, China, and India, with its huge population of billions of people, have more buying power in their own currencies than we do. This is a very serious concern, right? So it goes on. The article is about to end, so give me a second with you all. The Congresswoman's remarks come on the heels of a historic BRICS summit in South Africa, where the group agreed to an unprecedented expansion, admitting 6 new countries: Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. Now, what's significant about that? In Ethiopia, China did a study finding that Ethiopia, the area that America fomented war in with the Tigrays, right, that was going on these last few months, that area is full of natural resources and minerals that the United States, Great Britain, and France and NATO were trying to get their hands on through fomenting a civil war. Now, Egypt. Richard Nixon said, if we lose Egypt, we've lost the Middle East. That's what Richard Nixon said. So America is losing Egypt, which is the linchpin of her plans to dominate the Middle East. Okay? Argentina. We know that Argentina has been under the gun from the United States for the longest. And now Argentina can apply for loans to relieve them of the debt that they owe, which I would not pay, to the Western IMF and the World Bank. This is how the Argentina economy continues to stall, because the United States keeps saying, if you do it, you got to do this, this, and this, and then implement these policies, which are a detriment to economic growth and which are a detriment to the livelihood of the very citizens which the loans were supposed to be taken out to help. If you think I'm lying, go look at the guidelines of what the IMF and the World Bank demands of these nations. Now, all while The reason that the nations are in the condition that they're in is because the United States at one time or another, or European nations at one time or another, colonized these nations, siphoned the wealth off, or overthrew the governments, put in their own people in there, and these people took out great loans from the West, and these nations are caught trying to repay loans that they can never get out of, the debt trap. And they want to call China helping Africa out as a debt trap. Man, if you don't get out of here with this foolishness. Anyway, it goes on and says, now let's go. The United Arab Emirates, a big oil and gas producer, right? Iran, one of the largest oil and gas suppliers on the planet, right? We see Saudi Arabia, the largest gas supplier in the world. At times, Russia surpasses it. It goes up and down. It fluctuates, all right? So now you look at China, the largest economy in the world, purchasing power parity, the largest producer of goods in the world, the largest infrastructure project builder in the world, the largest investor, the largest trade partner, right, in the world. You look at South Africa, the one of the largest gold and diamond producers in the world, has military technology that a lot of you don't know. Do you know that South Africa was a nuclear power? Did you know that? Most people don't even know that. South Africa willingly gave up nuclear weapons, but they had nuclear weapons. Did you know that? And they sell military armament that are good. As a matter of fact, the United States, South Africa produces good weapons. As a matter of fact, the United States has accused South Africa of exporting weapons to Russia to fight Ukraine. That's for real. Now, I want you to understand something. While openly stating that she's exporting weapons to Ukraine to fight Russia. Bizarre world, right? And then you look at China. Some say the largest population in India will surpass it in a year or so, population-wise. All right? It's huge. Then you say India, which will be the largest population and will be the 5th or 6th largest economy. China, the largest economy. All of the key barometers are on the side of the BRICS, right? So we see in the passing of, well, not the passing of the torch, the snatching of the torch from the West by the global South and the BRICS nations, okay? And then in closing, the article says, in a declaration summarizing the summit, BRICS, which has historically positioned itself as an alternative to Western-dominated international institutions, reaffirmed its commitment to inclusiveness, while expressing support for the legitimate aspirations of Africa, Asian, and Latin American countries to play a more prominent role in the global arena. Now, what's important about this? Why did they say African and then Asian, then Latin American countries? It's not that they thought that any of these were better than the other, but because Vladimir Putin, Sergei Lavrov let the cat out the bag, that the key to a new global order lies with Africa. Why? Because as a continent, Africa is the richest continent on the planet by far, and it has every resource imaginable to man. That's why France, America, Great Britain, and all of the European nations refuse to leave. Now, knowing that, now you see why there is a push for military intervention in West Africa, because the West sees their mammary gland getting ready to put a bra on and tell it, go somewhere and suckle. Go somewhere else and suckle. And we talk about France getting 30% or 40% of its power from Niger through uranium. They don't tell you that the European Union gets a large portion of its from those African nations over there too. So this is a thing that they keep quiet, and they want you to think that there's a lot of chaos and confusion. But remember that the chaos and confusion followed American and Western troops into Africa, into the Middle East. Wherever they go, death, destruction follows them. Isn't that one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse? Wherever that horse went, a certain horse went, what happened? Pestilence, right? Destruction and war followed it. That's America in the West. Wherever they go, what is the common denominator? If you look at the division of West Asia, what's the common denominator with West Asia, the Middle East, the overthrows of governments in Latin America, and the colonialism and the provoking of war in Africa? What's the common denominator? Colonialism, right? Right? Is that not right? I'm not making anything up. I'm not embellishing anything. Prove me wrong. If you think you can, I'll send you the link, and we can rock and roll, baby. We can do this. So, again, we see this going on a daily basis. As a matter of fact, I'm going to play something for you, okay? It's a two-part to follow up what we're talking about. This is a two-part situation to follow us up. But before I play this, I want to now remember what we just talked about the Western moves around the world and how they fear they're losing dollar hegemony, and how this is causing the rise of conflict and division across the world. Now, America just doubled down and said she was sending another aid package to Ukraine. But in California, Hawaii, a one-time $700 payment for the people who suffered from a horrific fire. One $700 payment. They can only budget that in, but they can find multiple packages of hundreds of millions and even billions of dollars to Ukraine to instigate and prosecute war. Now, check this out. The United States and the European Union says that they are allies. Allies come to each other's aid, right? Isn't that what the Article 5 is of the NATO treaty? That when one is attacked, all are viewed as attacked. Now let's look there. Let's transition that to something here. Well, the European Union and Mr. Garden himself, Joseph Borrell, says that the European nations should get together and put a package together where every year they're giving at least $5 billion in aid to Ukraine. Mr. Joseph Borrell has not once mentioned giving that $5 billion in aid to the people who have suffered in Hawaii from the horrific fire. I thought if I'm in need and I'm in trouble and I'm your ally, you are supposed to come to my aid. Well, how the hell does it make sense for you to offer $5 billion for war, but not $5 billion to aid people who are in need, desperate need? Huh? I'm asking these things. Common sense matters, okay? Now, I said that to say this, because I've been saying this for nearly 2 decades. Check my track record, okay? Matter of fact, it's been 2 decades almost. On the Economic Collapse blog, right? The article is titled, it came out September the 3rd by Michael Schneider. And the title of the article, and I've never read it before. I just looked at the title. And like I do, I save certain things to read with you all for the first time, so that when you're surprised, I'm surprised, okay? I think that's a fair trade-off, right? So the article is titled, in quotation marks, Mad Max, and then it says, conditions are coming. Desperation is rising as the economy rapidly deteriorates and food costs soar. Now, here it is. Food costs is soaring. Russia has had a record grain harvest this year. So America sanctions Russia. She starts and instigates a war in Ukraine. 2 of the largest suppliers of grain and wheat in the world. Right? So of course, prices will spike. She sanctioned Russia. Russia is the largest, potash, I believe that is, which is something that they need for farming. And all of this other feed that is needed for cows and all other animals. She sanctioned Russia. And then she says, oh, food prices are skyrocketing. What the hell do you think? That is almost like you getting a butcher knife, chopping off your finger and say, oh, I'm bleeding. What do you expect? See, this is what I'm saying. This is why these people cannot be connected up here. This is why they have to be lunatics. They have to be bizarro people. All right? They have to be berserker leaders. Look up the word berserker. Look up the word berserker. Mentally, these people have to be berserkers because they have a craving and an insatiable taste for war at all costs without sitting down contemplating the economic, political, and social consequences. Right? So the article says, Mad Max conditions are coming. Desperation is rising as the economy rapidly deteriorates and food costs soar. Now, I'm not going to read the whole article. I'm just going to read a little bit of it. So this will be new to you and me. It says, I knew it was up there, but I just didn't read it a few days ago. Listen. How far would you go to feed your family? Hopefully, that is a question that you will not have to answer anytime soon. But right now, we are seeing millions upon millions of people become more desperate as economic conditions rapidly deteriorate and food costs soar. At this point, most Americans are just barely scraping by from month to month. And in poorer countries on the other side of the world, there are people that are literally starving to death. As I have detailed previously, the UN has reported that 2.4 billion people did not have enough food to eat last year. And 900 million of them were facing severe food insecurity. Sadly, those numbers will inevitably be even higher in 2023. A global rice crisis has erupted, and the collapse of the Black Sea grain deal has greatly restricted the flow of agricultural goods from that part of the globe. I just told you that. Food costs are spiking all over the planet, and that is really bad news for all of us. For those of us that live in the United States, the good news is that nobody is starving at this stage. That's what you say. But the food prices have become extremely oppressive, and economic conditions are quickly moving in the wrong direction. 670,000 full-time jobs have been lost in just the past 2 months. And on Friday, we witnessed the worst unadjusted payrolls report for the month of August since the Great Recession. Yes, things really are that bad. One recent survey discovered that 61% of Americans are currently living paycheck to paycheck, but I expect this number to go even higher in the months ahead. Inflation, mortgage rates over 7%, and credit card APRs north of 20% have pushed all income brackets into living paycheck to paycheck, according to a new survey from Lending Club Bank. In July 2023, 61% of U.S. consumers live paycheck to paycheck, unchanged from June 2023, but 2% points higher than July 2022. Generally, more consumers of all income brackets reportedly living paycheck to paycheck in July 2023 than last year. Aaliyah Dudum, a money expert at Lending Club, told Fox Business. Things are particularly dire. Let me go to this real quick, because we got to get the understanding of what this means for you. And I'm gonna check the chat in a minute, okay? I'm not ignoring you guys. Y'all just give me a second. The word dire is an adjective, and it means terrible, dreadful, appalling, frightful, awful, horrible, atrocious, ominous, portentous, gloomy, doom and gloom, sinister, grim. Okay? Now, we have that understanding. Let's go back to the article. It says, lower income Oh man, that is something that I just cannot believe it's like that. Oh, it says things are particularly dire for low-income workers. That means grim. That same survey discovered that a whopping 78% of those that earn less than $50,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck at this point. Now, why did I say that? If these are the numbers, and these people get paid to compile the numbers, the stats, to give a clear economic outlook on the American and global economies, then for sure the United States government has those at its disposal, and even more in-depth ones at its disposal. And if they do, wouldn't this be tantamount to treason for the American government to know these things and willfully ignore them, and yet be more concerned with the prosecution and persecution of war in Ukraine and around the globe? Huh? I'm asking. Right? They're more concerned with the rise of Russia and China than for you being able to send your children to Head Start. They're more concerned with China's rise as a global power than for you to be able to feed your family, or to pay your mortgage, pay your rent, or your car note that you need your car to go to work for a job that is quickly disappearing. And think about this. See, because I told you they don't think of the ramification of the policies that they enact. If war is to break out between the United States and China, with China producing between 93 and 95% of all goods on all shelves in all stores across America, surely China will not continue to ship goods to the United States in the event of a war. So that means China would embargo America. So the largest economy, the largest producer, the largest manufacturer, and the largest trade partner of America would embargo an economy that is already in a tailspin downwards. So now we look at the ramifications of this embargo. Within 2 weeks, the shelves would be empty. Stores would close down. The trains that ship the stuff would stop. The trucking companies that move the product across state would stop, which means that we would have massive unemployment, which means that the shipping from the cargo to the trucks, to the trains, to the ships would then be in default of the debt that they owe to their financier, which are the banks, which means that banks would go belly up, which means that the economy would implode. Are there any adults in charge? Huh? Because it seems as we have children in high offices. They have to be berserkers. They have to be. That is the only way to explain this irrational behavior, the irrational policy, or God has their minds. And though they did not like to retain God in their consciousness, God gave them over to a reprobate mind to do things which were not seemly. Don't we see the policy makers make unseemly, irrational, unsound judgments and policy moves? So we have to attribute that to what? Being given over to a reprobate mind, having a reprobate spirit, doing reprobate things, right? I'm just saying, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I'm not the butter knife, right? You guys bear with me. Bear with you, brother. Just give me a little bit more time with you. Listen, I want to play something for you, okay? I'm trying to see if I want to play this one, or I'll tell you what, to show you just how dire the situation is. We talk about economic and how it's tied to the military. I'm going to play something for you, okay? This is a part 1 and part 2. It was a 10-minute clip So I cut it up. And you guys give me about 10 or 15 more minutes of your time, okay? And then we'll do a part 2 of this. Just give me a little bit more of your time. I hate to leave things half done, okay? I'm not an American government personnel. I'm not an elected official. I'm not someone who is a think tank. So I like to get the job done, okay? Okay? So listen, I want you to pay close attention, excuse me, to this clip right here. In America, they're so preoccupied with the rise of others that they can't see that their policies and the institution of their policies is what's causing the collapse of American power, okay? That's the derision that they have been smitten with, that God had promised to smite modern Babylon with, and modern Babylon and modern Egypt. Remember ancient Egypt and Pharaoh and what happened to him in the time of Moses? Well, God promised to smite modern Pharaoh and modern Egypt. And I'm not talking about over in the Middle East with the same derision. And we're watching it in real time, so you can't say that it's not happening. But listen, what's going on here? We'll do part 1 and then part 2. We'll come back after part 1, though. Pay close attention to this.
The United States suggesting it's ready to use military power to maintain its international dominance that's being challenged by China. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin made a comment as the Pentagon unveiled its latest stealth bomber, B-21 Raider. Austin said that China has both the will and the power to reshape the U.S.-dominated international order, but he warned that Washington won't let that happen. Austin added that the U.S. is aligning its military budget to the China challenge. Washington and Beijing are locked in tensions over a host of issues, including what Beijing calls the threat posed by Washington's strategic shift to East Asia. China also says it is ready to use its military strength to dash attempts to challenge its rising power. Okay, to get some insight, allow me to invite a couple of guests and see what they think about it. So Andrew Leung, independent China specialist, joining me from Hong Kong. Also with me is Jeff Brown. He's a geopolitics analyst in Normandy, France. Good to see you, John. Now let's go to Andrew first. This is what Defense Secretary Austin said to Andrew, that China does have both the power and the will to do what the U.S. doesn't want to do, to change this U.S.-dominated international order. What would it take for the U.S. to be able to counter this?
Well, the reality remains that China's power is not China's power to challenge the American-dominated international order is not in the military. It is China's economic gravitas, particularly its economic interconnectivity with the rest of the world. As far as the military is concerned, the United States remains the world's dominant power. Because the United States spends on the military multiple times than China, both in aggregate terms and particularly in per capita terms. But above all, it outspends the next almost 5 countries combined as far as the military expenditure is concerned. Of course, as far as military technology is concerned, America still reigns supreme. Its latest bomber, of course, is the very top range of the state-of-the-art kind of bomber. And China is decades behind the United States. As far as nuclear weapons are concerned, again, the United States has multiple times, almost 10 times, the number of nuclear weapons. And in particular, the United States has got military bases in 800 bases around the world. There is no way that China can really threaten the Americans' dominance. Of course, China's capacity to defend itself has been increasing all the time. But the fact remains that China's challenge is not so much in the military, it's in economics. So the American defense secretaries trying to hype up this China threat, which of course is part of these 360 degrees pushback of the United States against China, is really trying to even put more money into the hands of the military, particularly the so-called industrial military complex, which is integral part of the American economic system.
Okay. Now let me ask Jeff this question. Jeff, Austin has said that talking about China's rise, that's an inevitable fact. It's been rising economically, military, in every possible way. And he's saying that he's wondering what that means for America's position in the world. So let me put that question to you. What would it mean for America's position in the world with China rising in different aspects?
Well, I would like to point out that what Austin said, the Eisenhower administration was saying the same thing to China back in the 1950s when they were threatening to bomb China with atomic weapons. And this was before China got the atomic bomb and missiles around 1964 to 1966. And Mao Zedong famously said, go ahead. He actually called their bluff and said, go ahead. If you want to try bombs, we'll just move to the western half of the country and continue on. And that's when he famously called the United States a paper tiger. And I think that really has changed for China since the 1950s. China is surrounded by dozens of U.S. military bases. China does not have to attack the United States. It only has to defend its own territory. It's the United States that has a supply line of 11,000 kilometers. This is just the typical imperial huff and puff to make the world think that the United States is indomitable and unbeatable and has full spectrum dominance over all of humanity.
Too, but I want to address something. And I don't. For those of you who are in the chat, I don't understand what's going on. Some of you guys are popping up in the chat, and this happens sometimes. So this has to be on YouTube's part on this one. Some of your chats are not showing up, and some of you people are not showing up in the chat. But in my StreamYard chat, you're showing up, and some of your comments are showing up in the StreamYard chat. So the YouTube chat is over here. Let me see, over here. And half of your chat comments are not showing up. But the StreamYard chat right here, they're showing up. And over here, I'm seeing both. All right. So I just want, because 3 computers are up. And so I just want you, so if you see me look to the side or look over here, I'm watching the computers and trying to figure out what in the world is going on over here. Now, I want you to think about something. As they invest more money that they don't have in the war. And we're gonna go back on the economics because all of this stuff is economic too, political and geopolitical. Now, as they do this, they are afraid that China and Russia are catching up or surpassing them. I want you to think about this. Only in the United States where they allot all of this money to the military, where you have $50 screws, $300 hammers. I'm serious. I'm not joking about this. When the Defense Department gets this money, they contract these things that they want built out to these companies, and these companies shoot up the price. It costs $200, $300 for a hammer, they say. $50. That's why the stuff is so expensive. That's why the military weapons, after they're finished, they're years out of date. They don't halfway work. Think about this: the most expensive weapon the United States has ever produced, the F-35, cannot fly in rain or lightning. You gotta listen. You have transport planes that land at the airport every day that fly through storms. But the most expensive plane that costs trillions of dollars for war can't fly in lightning storms or rain. Make that make sense. Now, to show you just how bad America is on decline, the healthcare system is rotten to the core. The educational system is rotten to the core. The medical system is rotten to the core. I was sparring last year. Let me show you something. Sparring last year, and chipped my tooth. Right, I go to the dentist. and everybody knows my wife, she's in the same room. She's listening right now. She's in the room with me. She can verify this. Paid about $3,000 to get it fixed, right? Got it fixed. It was looking all good. I believe at the beginning of this year. Now, mind you, from the time it was fixed to the beginning of this year, I think between 4 and 8 months elapsed. I was sitting down drinking water, and the part that they fixed came out. And I called the people, say, hey, listen, man, hey, I paid you all this money. Oh, you got to come back in. We got to schedule an appointment, and what do you mean you got to schedule an appointment? You got my X-rays. You know what you've done. How about you just fix it? Oh no, see, we got to schedule it. We got to run some more tests. And this is the plight of the average person dealing with the bureaucracy. And these people are in position to help, but they don't. They are about maximizing profit at the expense of the customer. And this is why America is declining also, okay? So before I get it fixed again, I'm going to do some research, because $3,000 is a hell of a lot of money to pay for one, two, especially when you have work done on your mouth, and then you have to pay $3 for one, and that's not including insurance. You know, I mean, it's crazy. But this is the state of the medical system of America. You know, you have 2 different kinds of insurance to take care of it, and you're still paying thousands of dollars. You know, one person told me, and it made sense, hey, man, it seems like if we pay insurance, we shouldn't have to pay deductibles. You're paying insurance, and that's supposed to be in case of. And so if the in case of happens, then they should take care of the in case of, because you've paid your insurance policy and premium. But this is a parasitic system. This is a parasitic financial system, medical system, everything. And they need, they need host bodies. That's why the United States continues to latch on to countries around the world, steal their resources. That's why, if you look, America goes and steal the technology from other nations, come back, and then she blames the other nations for stealing the technology. I want you to think about this. They say China is stealing the United States technology, right? This is what they say. China has the rail gun. I want you to understand the significance of what I'm saying to you. China has operating rail guns, a technology that the United States was decades ahead of China. China caught up and then lapped them, and they have them installed on their Type 54 destroyers, some of the most advanced destroyers on the world, the rail guns. These are destructive, powerful weapons. Guess what happened last year? The United States scrapped their railgun program because they were not able to master the railgun technology. The Chinese did. But how the hell did the Chinese steal the technology if they mastered it and you didn't? Let's look at something else. Because we have to bring these things up to light, because a lot of this stuff goes over people's head. China is behind the United States, right? But China has working hypersonic missiles. The United States does not. Even the United States Pentagon says that they're in the testing stages and the experimental stages. We know that, right? Well, if that's the case, then why the hell does the United States continue to put in the newspaper? Google this if you think I'm lying. That the Zumwalt warship, the Zumwalt warship, that new so-called stealth warship, is at dock right now being fitted for hypersonic missiles. Well, if you don't have them, and they're not even in the real progressive testing stages, because every time you've tried, you failed. How is the warship being tested, being fitted for the hypersonic missiles? The propaganda. Hell, the Zumwalt, the so-called most advanced warship the United States has ever produced, when the United States took it out to the sea, the engines conked out on it. It had to be towed through the Panama Canal. Billions upon billions upon billions of dollars, and it still hasn't worked properly yet. The most advanced aircraft carrier, the elevator in it doesn't work. The elevator to move like troops around and to move warplanes around and all that stuff like that, and armaments and weapons, it doesn't work. This is what I'm telling you. The parasitic nature of the system is eating away the system. Let me go into the chat real quick because I think I got to end this soon, and then we're going to do a part 2. Let me go in the chat. Now, let me go back up some. This is, oh man, we got bots in the building. Let's see. And Net Rondo says her name was Corinne Jean Pierre. Yeah, that's her name. That's her name. Yeah, I couldn't think of her name for the life of me. And and then I also want to say this, Net, when you put this up there, I didn't get this when you put it up. I just got it about 15 minutes ago. Just got it about 15 minutes ago. And I didn't, still it's not on the now it's popping up on my YouTube screen. See, I don't know what they're doing, man. Let's go down BRICS and SCO. The BRICS and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. I like that. It says, do you know governments paid nonprofits agencies? They get paid about $700 to $1,200 per night to shelter homeless in this agency. So sad for Maui people. Hey, that's what I'm saying. You got money for everything but to help your own citizens. And then these corporations take the money and they jet, leave you in the dust. Let's go. Putin's shirt. My guy's back in the chat. He said, banks are already going belly up. The U.S. just had the 3 biggest. Come on, what's going on? 3 biggest bank failures in U.S. history last March and April. That's true. That's true, man. Let me highlight this. I gotta highlight this real quick. He said, "Did you miss that in the news?" Right. This is what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That and think about this. Prior to that, multiple banks were closing down, and they'll say only 70 banks shut down. Or let's just give it an even number, a round number. Only 100 banks. The United States has tens of thousands of banks, right? They'll say only 100 banks closed down. But what they don't tell you is that those 100 banks each had about 30 or 40 branches. And then you do the multiplication and you'll see, whoa, my God, the size of the collapse when those 100 banks failed. All right? Because they know most people are lazy and they don't do research or they don't think. They just accept what is told to them. Shout out to Canada. Shout out to Canada. Let's see. Yeah, let me put this Putin shirt up here again. Is it gonna let me do it? Hey, if I don't put your stuff up here, it's not me. They're playing tricks with this stuff. It says the U.S. is not the top military power anymore. How much you spend is no measure of military power. That's true. But listen, just for talking points, they say that stuff. They talk again. I explained it. The reason America has to spend so much on it is because, look, the companies that are contracted to build the stuff, they charge $300 for a hammer. If you try that with China, you will get executed. If you try fleecing the Chinese government and the Chinese people, you will get executed. If you try that in Russia, you will be put in jail. But in America, hey, it's not my money, it's the taxpayers' money, right? And so they don't mind appropriating these bills for weapons that are that take 10 years past their prime to produce and are outdated once they go live. And all of these extended appropriations for these weapons that don't work. They're just fleecing the people. Scott Ritter said on the show, you know, the military industrial complex is really just fleecing the people. Listen, it's been a great time talking with you guys. Listen, I have something I have to do. Since we really chopped it up and had a good time, we'll try to come back and do one tomorrow if I get a chance to. So you guys look out. But before I go, listen, hit the like button. Share this with people. Tell them about the show. You know, we have to do this to keep the show going because of they keep me out of the search engine. They take my subscribers away and everything else. So I'm fighting against the algorithm, the machine, and, you know, the powers that be. But I'm going to fight the good fight because I got God on my side, so I can't fail. On that note, I go out the same way that I always come in. Oh, and remember this. Hey, join us also Thursday. We'll have the Intel Drop. You know, that's a series that we do on this platform. And we'll have, again, Larry Johnson, former CIA analyst, on the show at 10 a.m. Central Time, 11 Eastern Time, Thursday. We'll try to come back tomorrow and do a part 2 of this show about the BRICS. If I don't get to it, charge it to my head and not to my heart. Hey, thank you for giving me your time. I know that time is the most precious and most valuable commodity because once it's used up, you can never get it again. So I really appreciate everything. I love you and I thank you for supporting the platform. But remember that God, he will always love you better. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, stay righteous. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. Everybody, I got to say, deuce.